check, because now that Elise is gone, Zac is likely to be gone as well at some point, and that leaves a lot of tank junglers remaining, like the Cho'Gath that we've heard from time to time.
Yeah, Unicorns of Love giving respect to Pride Stalker's Elise, one of his best picks across this split. Actually, his most picked jungler as well. Interesting, just noting Pride Stalker, Rengar is a possibility with Duskblade and Lethality rising up again, something he was known for a lot in the past.
It's an outside chance for sure. When you look at how ROCCAT now banning away the Zac, they've been banning out now priority champions for Unicorns of Love. Historically, Shen, Caitlyn have been very good picks for Vizicsacsi and Samux. Cassiopeia banned away as a scaling matchup. You can basically blind pick Cassiopeia in a lot of situations and give her a little bit of help to get her through the laning phase, and that'll be fine. Now, the Jace being banned out, not only is it a champion we've seen Faxi play, it's one of the Duskblade champions up in that top lane we've seen and heard a little about.
An interesting fact here is that ROCCAT have decided to get rid of that Zac on the blue side, something we don't too commonly see, obviously showing us that jungle meta has changed on 7-14.
And part of that now is if you are taking the Thresh away, you don't want to give them that S-tier jungler that we know is still going to be strong. This Cho'Gath does have flex potential. We saw Cho'Gath yesterday, actually, in the North American Challenger Series in the top lane. So a lot of versatility now for the Unicorns of Love coming out of their first rotation.
There is the Cho'Gath locked in, as you say, alongside the Xayah. Samux played that 5 times thus far this split, one of his most played AD carries, and something we see Unicorns of Love putting a lot of priority towards.
And it gives them a decent amount of potential in the late game now for damage. We have a couple of options to go after now. ROCCAT have locked the Kalista alongside Thresh, a very strong bottom lane. Unicorns may pick up the Rakan on their rotation, or wait and pick up something like an Alistar, a Blitzcrank that we have seen in times gone by. But if ROCCAT do put the priority here in mid lane on the Syndra, while it's Betsy's most played champion, I don't feel like ROCCAT have shown an ability to close a game when playing around an early champion for Betsy.
We have seen Exile struggle against Syndra recently, though. Last week, 2 games on that Corki, really struggled early on to try and make plays into the Syndra, sometimes overextending slightly. Unicorns will get their lovers in the bottom lane with the Rakan lock-in here, so we'll have the birds in the bottom lane against the Kalista Thresh. What are our expectations coming into this second ban phase from both of these two teams, Strauss?
So now we're looking at a mix of junglers and top laners being banned away by the Unicorns and mid laners taken out by ROCCAT. If we were to see the likes of a Kassadin, it's not the greatest matchup into the Syndra, but still something that Exile has trended towards. I wouldn't be too surprised to see those later game scaling, maybe the likes of a Vlad being taken away from ROCCAT's side as well.
We are going to see the Gnar removed alongside the Renekton. Now, we talked a little bit about the flexibility of Cho'Gath.
Yeah.
Can be top, can be jungle. It looks like both teams think they might be going towards the jungle.
And of course, Gnar you've got to take away from Faxi at the same time, and Chachi basically is setting himself in a situation where he can dictate the top lane matchup. Camille being banned out is the other pick that Faxi has actually looked okay on. These side lane split pushes, he's defaulted to Fiora a couple of times and hasn't looked all that bad, but a lot of priority towards top lane here out of both teams.
We'll see the LeBlanc and the Camille getting taken away. As you say, Unicorns have the first pick. With the Rumble locked in, they are going to play that Cho'Gath in the jungle, so very interested to see how effective Xerxes can be.
So there's still the possibility of the flex that we see sometimes happen in LCK. Xerxes was one of the first Rumble jungle players for a while. There is also the very outside chance that Cho'Gath into Syndra, not a great laning phase, but it's the Unicorns. You've always got to keep that window open. There was a time, remember, where Cho'Gath was a meta mid laner. Not so much right now, but I just want to keep that option available. ROCCAT taking themselves an assassin out of the jungle, though. Kha'Zix made even stronger potentially with that Duskblade addition, as he, above maybe a lot of other junglers, can utilize that dropping vision using the passive.
I'm very happy with this ROCCAT lineup looking at it, because I see assassins, I see dive potential, I see a lot of exciting things coming from them. They do lock in the Galio last as well, something we have seen Faxi play a few times already this split. Will be the Vladimir for the Unicorns of Love, so it's going to be Rumble top, we expect, alongside the Cho'Gath in the jungle.
Right, that is the most likely setup now. And this Vladimir, along with the Xayah, has such good late game strength. You've got a lot of good late game team fighting, and then you've got Cho'Gath as a frontline alongside Rakan, very difficult to deal with. Like, the Cho'Gath gets so incredibly tanky, Rakan is able to start engages, allow Cho'Gath to get into the fight, and then that massive amount of AoE damage coming from Cho'Gath's new E that we'll explain in-game is going to be able to help them out against ROCCAT as well.
So what are these two compositions trying to do here, Stress? We see something that Unicorns of Love tend to pick is this sort of later game scaling composition, but what are ROCCAT trying to do with this lineup?
So ROCCAT's emphasis is likely to be around trying to get mid lane ahead in the early game and then transition that down towards the bottom side of the map. Of course, they've got the Galio there to provide protection for the Kalista, for the Syndra in teamfights. So ROCCAT are actually aiming to fight a little bit earlier on than the Unicorns lineup, but we know the Unicorns, as soon as they think a fight can go in their favor, they will take it.
And it's something that's worked out for them across the last few weeks. 3 series undefeated, or 3 series won in a row is a better way to say that. If you guys want to get involved, make sure you tweet at us at LOLesports, hashtag UOLwin if you think Unicorns will take it, and hashtag ROCWin if you think the cat will take down the Unicorn today. I have facts about cats later on. We'll get to them when we can, but we are going to get onto the Summoner's Rift for the first game of patch 7.14 and the first game of week 7.
It'll have to be a big cat, and perhaps this cat, the Pride Stalker, might have some pretty big claws in this game. Kha'Zix's potential Duskblade buy if he ends up going the new route. And against Xerxes, now Cho'Gath, his clear early game on the other side for Unicorns is pretty decent. His ability to fight in the early game against high damage junglers is not so much. After level 6, you can still trade effectively, utilizing the ult, but look at what Unicorns are doing on the top side of the map now. Hylissang in the pit.
So we saw them do this against Misfits last week. They burnt Alphari's flash early on because Alphari had pushed up to the second bush. Will Faxi make the same mistake?
Faxi surely should have watched that. Now as he sees Hylissang come out of the pit, you have to know that the Unicorns are on the top side. And this is a lot safer out of ROCCAT, as Unicorns will go back to the bottom side. Now, of course, they want to try and get Chachi ahead. A lot of their earlier game damage is going to come from this Rumble on the top side, and if Chachi can stay up in the lane against Faxi, that is a good sign for them. Against Galio, you should have a decent amount of freedom, but Galio will be able to push back ever so slightly in that top lane.
Something we've talked about across this week, Stress, when we've been discussing this matchup, is how much we want ROCCAT to play around the bottom lane mostly. Pride Stalker with this Kha'Zix jungler, do you think he's going to be able to facilitate that bottom lane?
He should be able to, especially with the Thresh as well. The Lantern into the lane is a great way of actually getting that fight started bot side. I think we'll have to track Pride Stalker and his emphasis on Xerxes as well. But we already see early game priority from ROCCAT, trying to just find out where this Cho'Gath is starting, trying to upset a little bit of his early game clear. And Xerxes, he's fine though.
Yeah, he's fine for the moment. Pride Stalker will clear out his Razor Beaks first and then go up towards the top side of the map along his jungle route. Let's talk a little bit about Xerxes' ganking potential here, though, because he's been a jungler who has been known for these sort of slightly more outlandish picks that are a little bit less in the meta. Here on the Cho'Gath, he's picking something that's a bit more meta, a bit more usual. How is he going to be able to gank these lanes? Because Cho'Gath, without follow-up CC or without CC to start it off, can struggle.
Exactly. It's a lot about starting the CC chain for Cho'Gath, because as soon as you get in range for the Rupture, the Q, the Silence, that generally is enough. So if Xerxes can get, for instance, maybe a slow from Chachi top lane or a knockup from Hylissang, that's fine. But Cho'Gath, as you said, on his own, doesn't have the best ganking potential. It's not awful. He can still get into a lane and make it work, but we can already see bottom lane under a lot of pressure. ROCCAT made it to the bot lane earlier because of the start that Unicorns had in the jungle, and now they've hit level 2. They've pushed up to the wave, and they've actually mitigated a lot of the strength that Xayah and Rakan typically would have trading at that level 2 mark.
XR once again taking a bad trade into a Syndra early on, getting forced back by Betsy, who does have the Ignite, so needs to be careful in that lane. But coming back to bottom lane, the reason we say Pride Stalker needs to be down here is when ROCCAT have a lead, it comes from this bottom lane. So when they're behind, they tend to be out-ganked by the enemy jungle. Actually going to see an engage here from Hylissang onto Hyun, and he has to flash away. The Ignite comes out as well, and the dance back from Hylissang to keep himself safe.
And I think when you look at when ROCCAT are ahead, so much of ROCCAT's lead as a team is actually compounded on this bottom lane. It's roughly 2/3 of the overall team lead sits with Hyanan and Wadid. So there's a lot of benefit to be had from putting all of this extra jungle input into Hyanan and Wadid as a duo lane.
And you might say, oh, hook onto Hylissang. He should be able to jump away. Instead, he jumps in. Ignite comes out. The heal will have to be used as well from the Unicorns. Over-aggression from Hylissang and Samux, and Pridestalker is down towards the bottom side.
And it feels almost like Unicorns are playing this out in a standard way, that they didn't lose the engage, or at least the push level 2. Now, Hyanan, he has his flash unavailable as well, so that is something to keep our eyes on. So Unicorns are actually not too bad off in that standpoint. They need some of the added sustain to come through from Hylissang and Samux in this lane if they want to really kind of get back into it, because they are still down heavily in CS.
And just coming back to that point about bottom lane and the advantage that Hyanan and did get, it's easy to say when ROCCAT have a lead, of course the bottom lane should have a lead,
yeah,
but the lead they have is disproportionate to the amount that ROCCAT are in the lead. So if ROCCAT have 1,500 gold lead, about 1,000 of that advantage can be found in Hyanan and Woodid in that bottom lane. So the focus for ROCCAT should always be to get them ahead. Chachi's going to get traded on here by Faxi. Winds of War comes out. Needs to be careful because Chachi is in the danger zone in more ways than one. He will overheat, flashes away. Faxi gets the cluster smash. There's no mana though on Faxi, so he's gated as to how much more he can do.
But obviously getting the flash there is a significant benefit for Chachi in this lane matchup. We also saw in the middle lane on the minimap, you could see Exile and Xerxes actually tried to go aggressive on Betsy, but didn't secure any summoners from the Syndra. So Unicorn's trying to play on the top side of the map, while ROCCAT, as we said, trying to play along the bottom side. I feel like as soon... Ooh, Betsy, no mana, not level 6. I feel like as soon as he is level 6, this is where the impact play is going to come from. Get that ultimate down onto Exile, hit him with the Ignite, and get that first kill of the game.
Let's just reset for a second. We've talked a lot about the bottom lane. Let's look a little bit more at that mid lane, because Exile is struggling into Betsy for the time being. In this Vladimir into Syndra matchup, it does take time for the Vladimir to be able to actually do anything.
Yeah.
You need some items, you need some scaling. How long should Exile be waiting before he can actually take beneficial trades?
I mean, how long should Exile keep waiting? Like 20 minutes until he's team fighting and doesn't necessarily want to trade 1v1 if they want to play Exile perfectly. But honestly, so much of this game is going to be about the bottom lane. Here comes another fight.
Engage again from Hylissang. Hyanan able to jump out with the Lantern. Hook. Hylissang dodges. This is why I hate playing Thresh into Rakan. It's impossible to catch him out.
And the disappointment of that is I want to watch Chachi for just Xerxes for just a minute here. I want to watch him farm. I want to explain a little bit about why Cho'Gath is so good with the renewed E. Between that and the Hunter's Talisman, he doesn't drop particularly low because his passive, remember, gives him back health, gives him back mana, everything's great. And once you hit level 6, you can get those first 6 stacks very easily from creeps and then infinitely scale damage on your E utilizing the feast stacks. That's how it ends up stacking and dealing more damage. But Xerxes, he's around
going back. Pridestalker 6. Visit Chachi just gets melted off the face of Summoner's Rift. Pridestalker might fall here. He does. It's a 1-for-1 trade in the top lane.
1-for-1 overall top lane. Xerxes, I don't know whether Xerxes just wasn't on the same page as Chachi up top, because he actually had the opportunity to go in and maybe deter some of that engage. Of course, Rupture plus the Silence is actually very good defensively as well, but Chachi died so incredibly quickly as Pridestalker made his way up into the lane and got that first kill for first blood. But Chachi obviously trades it back in exchange now, and the Unicorns, they are still down, but they'll not be too unhappy with at least picking up a kill from that.
Do you see Pridestalker going towards the Warriors enchant, as you would expect. Caulfield's Warhammer in his back pocket for the moment. Faxi's gone straight for the Mercury Treads alongside a Dark Seal and a Doran's Ring. Triple starting items for him in that top lane, whereas Chachi's now been able to complete his Haunting Guise, building up towards the Leandries you would expect.
Yeah, of course, Faxi not able to go the old triple Doran's Ring and just say, okay, everything's fine, because that was nerfed heavily a few patches back. No longer do you get all of that sustain. There's ROCCAT. This has been a good start for them so far, and I want to see them do more with this, but look how... Oh, Exile, what
is he going to go down? That's the Ignite! He goes into the Sanguine Pool, but you're just going to burn down!
What was that? We saw him do that last week on Corki. Why are you taking a trade under the enemy tower against a Syndra with Ignite?
It's into a Syndra matchup as well last week, just misreading the situation completely. And something we had seen a couple of minutes before was Hylissang actually coming up towards that mid lane, trying to help out his mid laner, trying to get some vision around that, but Exile, just in that pure 1v1, is unable to make the plays he wants to.
You talk about Hylissang heading towards the mid lane. That is the Unicorns' playstyle. Get out of the first few minutes, get the support over to mid lane, make sure you get as much emphasis down, but it doesn't always pay off. You can see, look, when you look at these two supports in general, Woodid does the opposite. Woodid is always by Hyanan. Woodid is always trying to get his AD carry ahead. Hylissang has the highest mid proximity for a support, but how much does it pay off, Medic? How many times do we see Exile going under tower and dying, taking an awkward trade that everything he's done to stay even in lane is just completely gone? Why would you walk there?
I don't know.
You don't need to take that trade. Now, I know why he did it in his mind to some degree, because last week it was the same thing. No mana. He sees no mana on Syndra and thinks, that's fine. She can't do damage to me. The turret will do it.
Didn't work out for him. Bezzy does have to flash away from the rupture in mid, but this is something we have seen from Exile over the last split or so. You know, you go back to IEM last year where he got the player, the MVP of the tournament. He had an incredible split afterwards, and now he's just looking like a shadow of his former self, and his team is trying to react to that. We see Xerxes coming mid a lot. We see Hylissang spending a lot of time around mid lane as well, but they haven't been able to shore up this laning phase for Exile.
And let's take it another level. Can we swap over to the Unicorn's vision for just a second? I can see Wadid heading mid, but look at how much vision is invested on mid. We just saw Kha'Zix. We saw the Thresh coming. Exile shouldn't die here.
There comes the flare, and Exile's ignited straight away. The Hemoplate comes down. The hook's not going to land because Exile has to flash. Ooh. Burns both summoners to get himself away.
He didn't die here. We can swap back to full vision now, back on the game. Thank you very much, observers. But look at how much Exile saw on the way into that exchange and still had to burn his flash. Now, granted, flash instead of dying is much better. That's fine. But it's these unforced errors like the death that they really have to fix.
I think you can even argue that flash is an unforced error. You've got vision control. You know that the bot lane is missing. You should be able to play a little bit safer in the lane when you're playing these scaling champions. However, we're only 10 minutes into the game, and there's only a 700 gold lead here for ROCCAT. In picks and bans, we said Unicorns of Love want to scale up. They want to get to the later game. How much do you think that this portion of the game is going to impact whether Unicorns get to that late stage?
With the Unicorns, there's never seemingly been a problem with a couple of deaths here and there. You can see Chachi, his performance so far in summer. Quite a lot of isolated deaths, considering Chachi was like MVP and didn't have that many deaths in the spring split, but Faxi, his opponent, actually gives up more. To tie that into the point you were talking about, Unicorns aren't afraid when they drop 1 or 2 members because they know with this lineup, team fighting, they will be superior in the late game, and they don't assume ROCCAT can punish them before the late game.
We saw Unicorns group up as a 3, the Fate Score is going to come out, Xerxes is going to get flayed back, and Hyanan is looking for a lot of damage. I was going to call him Kasing there. Got Kalista and Hyanan confused in my head.
Too much Team RP.
Yeah, too much Team RP in the Challenger Series.
Which, I mean, it's early to say for ROCCAT, but they need to keep getting these wins. Otherwise, they could find themselves facing up against the likes of the promotion tournament teams. Now, for now, they are at least sitting pretty, but Pridestalker's being found.
Should be able to leap his way away if he needs it. Got the Lantern there as well. But as you say, ROCCAT are only 2 wins ahead of NIP at the moment, and if NIP shore up some of their mid-game decision-making, able to translate the early game leads we see them continually getting, ROCCAT are in a very tough spot.
Here was the roam out of Hylissang, and those roams are going to get better. The engagements are going to get better because another change on 7.14, slightly smaller change when you look at the overall impact, but the ancient coin line of support items got changed. If you remember the old Captain's Boots where you got movement speed running towards the user, that'll happen with Rakan later on, and constant fighting topside from Chachi and Faxi.
It's just trades back and forth. Chachi on the losing end of that one. Faxi has no more Corrupting Potion stacks, so we'll just be able to clear out this wave as Chachi uses the Equalizer to clear it for himself. Xerxes is going to come down towards the bottom lane. This is one of the few lanes where he has crowd control there ready for him. Rakan can jump in, and that's exactly what we'll see. The charm comes out, the quickness, and Hyanan is melted.
So quick that Cho didn't even get there. Xerxes wasn't quite ready to get into the lane. One of the drawbacks, of course, of that Cho'Gath. A little bit slow off the mark at times, but that's a pretty swift and easy kill down in the bottom lane. Hyanan didn't even get a chance to flash out as Hylissang flashed in for the engage. But of course, now Unicorn's looking to take control of that bottom lane. We talked about how it should be a benefit for ROCCAT, and unfortunately right now, it isn't. Samux has been doing a good job of farming. Now the bot tower is going down, and Cho'Gath is going to pick up a stack off the first dragon of the game. And of course, dragons do not count for the stacks consumed by minions. You can get as many stacks as you want off dragons and barons and champions and all that, like, not limited.
Pridestalker's going to jump onto Chachi here in the top lane. Here comes the hero's entrance as well. 3 members looking for this rumble. He's going to try and get himself underneath the tower, but I'm not sure he is long for the Summoner's Rift. Baxi tries to get the Shield of Durand out, will land the Justice Punch with Did, tanking up the tower, and Pridestalker will secure the kill.
ROCCAT with the 3 versus 1 under the tower. Chachi survived a little bit longer than I think anticipated. I want to see where he used his flash if we do end up getting a replay of that, but Betsy was pushing mid at the same time, trying to just hold out the wave. And this is the engaged bottom lane, so I don't think they knew Xerxes was there, but you have to respect Hylissang's ability to jump, using that extra jump range onto Xayah, get that knockup, get the quickness to go as well. And Cho, it's a bit like watching
It's what
the
I love
dad's
about
race.
Cho'Gath. Yeah, it's just like slowly plodding towards the fight. Like, I'll get there, guys. I'll get there. And in the end, doesn't really do much. And that's kind of the story of Xerxes' game thus far. He's farmed up well, but he's only done 13 damage to champions thus far in this game.
That is really, that's kind of like Pridestalker
Pridestalker
stats from the Warwick game a couple of weeks ago.
What we need is Pridestalker to play the Cho'Gath to teach Xerxes how to play it.
I mean, Xerxes will start doing more damage. He's at 3 stacks already. 1 has come from monsters, 1 has come from minions, and the other has come from a dragon. So he is going to have a decent amount of damage because, as we were talking about, the scaling on his E max health % damage will increase, but another fight starts on Exile.
Hylissang is just around the corner. The teleports are coming in as well from both teams. They want to fight. They want to Barney in the river. Unicorns of Love love this position. There's the equalizer. Face call brings him back. Chachi caught up towards the side of the wall. Hylissang jumps over. He's caught as well. It's another kill for ROCCAT. They take down 2, and perhaps they'll push for more. They decide against it for the time being.
Remember, we kind of alluded to the fact that unicorns will fight whenever they want to, not necessarily when it makes sense at all times. And that was another one of those where Exile gets hooked and the rest of the team commits to the engage. And you look across the rift, you see a Sindri, you see the likes of the Kha'Zix, the Galio, that are just good in these early fights. They don't necessarily need more items than they have in order to fight successfully, and suddenly ROCCAT, this is a great lead for them. 2,000 gold right now. They've cracked mid-tower as well. Theoretically, now they can control the map around the unicorns and actually not take those fights.
And ROCCAT are looking so organized as a team here as well. Well, we'll look at this replay and then I'll hit my superb point that I was about to make.
I hope it is superb, because this hook was kind of superb as well onto Exile. Starts the fight, and then look, Unicorns commit to this. Samux was in the top lane. They can get the Galio in range for ROCCAT, and despite Wadid dropping low, remember there's that Kalista. ROCCAT actually back away from the fight. And then Hylissang and Chachi are left for dead at the end of this. Exile survives because he's running away. He's level 11, but with no real itemization to take these fights with.
Last split, just before ROCCAT started to win, Hyanan gave an interview, and he said in it, we just don't feel organized as a team. At home, we don't feel like we're a group of friends, we don't feel like we're playing as a team, and you can see it on the stage as well. I mean, he used a little bit more colorful language than I'm using, but I'm dulling it down for us. And I felt that was what ROCCAT were like up until this week as well. They weren't an organized team, they weren't making plays proactively together. Pridestalker tended to just farm up until fights begun around them. But this week, they've looked a lot more proactive. We're seeing Wadid and Hyanan translate a bottom lane lead up towards the mid lane. And even though they were only like 5 or 6 CS ahead, they have been able to translate that into the other lanes and help Pridestalker get these other lanes ahead.
Yeah, exactly. ROCCAT are working well on the same page around their bottom lane as well. Because look, Hyanan just picked up the Eye of the Herald here. He's just going to be able to drop it at some point up in the top side. At least that's where I was envisioning. Bot tower does stand as well, so there are a couple of options here. Don't need to put it down mid at this point, but I like the fact that ROCCAT are playing a little bit more around their bottom lane. Oh, and there's a point of big danger on the side of the Unicorns. The first one of patch 7.14.
Oh, baby, let's go.
Duskblade is on the rift for Pridestalker's Kha'Zix.
I'm worried about this because Pridestalker's main champion in Challenger Series last split was Kha'Zix, and he was destructive on it. Now you give him something that gives him more damage. I'm very worried for Unicorns of Love. They might get caught out, but at the moment, they're the ones doing the catching, as Wadid goes down to half HP. Pridestalker's on his way up there, but he's going to get a Scuttle Crab for himself first. While the game slows down slightly stressed, let's have a quick look across the rest of the items. Proto Belt on Exile first, alongside Mercury Treads. That Liandry's has been finished on Vizi Chachi, and both AD carries have their first item spike.
No surprise for Xerxes at the same time, building on that tanky route with Cho'Gath. You may end up seeing Cho'Gath go Stone Plate That's because Cho'Gath's ult scales off bonus health, and if you get that glorious 5-person stone plate into 100% extra health as bonus health, you just kind of one-shot an AD carry with your ultimate. So we may see that, but just a tanky route. Sometimes we see Righteous Glory come through as well, just to get Cho'Gath moving, get him motivated into the fight.
And Stress, about 8 minutes ago, I told you how much damage Xerxes had done to champions.
Okay.
I've had information from the stats team here. Guess how much more he has done.
He was on 13?
He was on 13 at 10 minutes.
Is he on 26 damage?
No, he is still on 13 damage.
Wow.
Yet to hit another champion since that 10-minute mark. And as much as he's playing a tank, and you can say he's going to be tanky, you still do damage when you land your Rupture.
You do. One thing that you can say is this Unicorns lineup doesn't have the best primary engage. Like, ROCCAT, if you can get it, is good. If you can get the flash in, if you can lock somebody down, it's fine. But without the likes of a Syndra to land a long-range stun, like Cho'Gath is not exactly the most nimble person. But speaking of mid laners, here we go.
Hero's entrance onto Betsy. Hemoplate came down as well, but they were able to take out Exile before that really all started. I think Betsy just used the Unleashed Power.
Yeah, Ignite and Unleashed Power was used, and Faxi was there to defend him. Unicorns of Blood trying this unorthodox jungle, or at least what we're expecting to become meta, but haven't been able to set him up in this game particularly well, and now ROCCAT are looking much stronger in this early game portion.
And we get to the 20-minute mark. ROCCAT have been able to extend their gold lead from 2,000 at 15 minutes. It's now up at 4,000. Unicorns of Love at 15 minutes, actually the 4th worst teams in terms of gold. They have a negative gold lead at 15 minutes, and you can see they actually have a relatively good record when they're behind at 20 because they play these scaling compositions. They've got a better record than ROCCAT have with a lead.
And because the composition Unicorns is running has a Xayah and has a Vlad, we must see from ROCCAT better ability to snowball this lead with the Syndra than we did last week against Vitality. Betsy had great leads in the series, but couldn't close the games. We must see them be able to snowball effectively and actually shut these games out.
So what is a better snowball? How do ROCCAT actually snowball this game from here?
So, to get the snowball, they need to be actively looking for Betsy to get stuns like this. It was against Mysterious Monkeys last week that they actually failed to snowball the games effectively. But yeah, long-range stuns from Betsy. Force these skirmishes around vision now. Look, try and deny as much Baron vision as you can. It's not like you have an Ash Arrow to set up the fights, but a Thresh, a Syndra, Kalista, these kind of things will get fights started, and then you bring in Faxi using the ultimate. Get the small skirmish, get objectives, continue to increase your gold lead. That's what ROCCAT need to be active doing.
That's what they seem to be doing at the moment. They've denied a lot of vision from the Unicorns, and they'll actually catch out Hylissang. Ignite comes down, so does the heal. The chase in, that's a dead Hylissang. Perhaps they'll look for Samix as well. Pride Stalker not quite tasting enough fear from that Xayah.
Pride Stalker walks up and knows that as soon as he's close enough, Duskblade, okay, here we go. Get that Night Stalker, Pride Stalker, Smite Stalker going.
Exactly, he's level 12 as well, so that's an extra 200 odd damage. I think it's about 250 damage you get at level 12. Every time you can proc that Night Hunter. They are looking for top lane tower. This is the snowball we talked about, Stress.
Yeah, and the Duskblade, one of the biggest problems on it that the pros are talking about isn't necessarily that you get the damage, it's that there's no internal cooldown on the item. That you can go in and out of vision 3 times in a fight and instantly just get these 3 hits. And that's the biggest problem that at least the pros are kind of saying, well, maybe this item's a little overtuned. Now, we did drop the damage down, or at least the game designers dropped the damage down on a hotfix, but it is still very strong.
And it gets more strong the later you get into the game, because it's based on your level as well. Hylissang here, this is what we're talking about with vision.
No vision.
He has no vision at all.
Could have been in that bush. He did sweep through the bush ever so slightly, but Hook predicting by Wadid. It's one of the reasons this Thresh was first pick, and then, oh, goodbye health. Kha'Zix just walks up and annihilates an AD carry.
It's the reason he has picked this Thresh 8 times this split.
And the other side of Duskblade, which I like, I personally love the vision control aspect of it, because of course, every so often, every time that passive is available, 90-second cooldown on it, you're able to clear out a ward. As soon as it spots you, you can just take a ward out, you can ward around your enemy jungle, deny their vision as well, and then you pair it with a sweeper, you can clear all of the wards. It's beautiful.
It is. It works out incredibly well, and I'm glad that we saw one in the first game, and Pride Stalker is definitely the sort of man we expect to bring it out. But on the other side of the coin, Xerxes has not had the impact perhaps he would have liked in this game. He is scaling up. He is playing a Cho'Gath without much crowd control in his lanes. But we've always seen a difficulty to adapt to the meta, or at least Unicorns haven't allowed him to play meta junglers that often. Are we seeing that once again here, where he's playing a tank, but he's not playing it to great effect?
I think the difficulty for Xerxes is looking for openings. There aren't many openings that exist right now for him. Like, look, Rupture lands there, but great, he got more damage done this game, but the rest of the team aren't ready to commit. There is no hard crowd control after that Rupture there that realistically Unicorns are able to punish with, and that means Unicorns will be on the back foot until ROCCAT make a mistake, potentially Betsy getting caught out. But look, the Lantern, it's there already.
Didn't even click it.
Exactly, Wadid is already covering for Betsy being maybe a little close in the mid lane.
And ROCCAT are covering for their later game as well. Executioner's call-in has been completed on Hyanan to try and stop all of this healing that comes from a Cho'Gath and that comes from a Vladimir.
One thing that Unicorns have been a good team with is always getting something in exchange for when their opponents are taking objectives. So here, they get the mid tower when Hyanan has committed to the top side. They know that they can't stop him getting that tower, so let's get an objective in mid. And this is something they frequently do. Hylissang's got it!
Engage onto Betsy. Here's the hero's entrance. Teleport's going to join the fight as well. Exile's on the back line. Unicorns of Love trying to take the fight in the mid lane that they know and love. Pridestalker has been melted off towards the back, but he will kill Exile. Let's go up to the top of the fight as we do see Chachi getting called out. ROCCAT are going to engage. The Tides of Shield of Duran gets the stun as well. The taunt comes out, and it is a 2-for-1 for the time being. Look at what Hyanan's doing. He's still safe on the back line. Hylissang trying to step forward, gets caught up by Faxi. Shield of Duran gets the taunt, but he's going to jump away, and the hook does not quite connect from Wadid.
Unicorns are able to trade 2 for 2 in that fight. In fact, ROCCAT only lost 1 member and ended up taking control of the second half of that fight, but it all started with ROCCAT still having Hyanan up on the top side of the map and having to come back down, and ROCCAT were able to buy enough time. They could take out Exile, they could take out Visit Chachi, and only lose Pridestalker in response. But you got to look at how Unicorns still play out that fight. Considering ROCCAT have a decent lead, you would expect ROCCAT to be able to take fights early on, but they didn't have the numbers to start it off.
And even with a 6,000 gold lead, ROCCAT aren't winning these fights downright.
And look at it, Wadid and Hyanan aren't in the fight yet, as Hylissang goes back towards the team and then flashes on top of the ROCCAT mid laner. From there, Exile ends up losing the trade, and it's a little unfortunate from Exile's point of view that Pridestalker wasn't feasted half a second earlier because those void spikes still came out. Then Chachi tries to back away, Flay comes through from Wadid, and everything's great here, but look, you can see how from this point, Unicorns still need more damage on Samux. They need more items completed. Xerxes, he's building a tank. This isn't full AP Cho'Gath. You can't go back into this fight unrelenting.
Look at how little damage Hyanan did in that fight as well. Actually, the least of any member of either team. He just didn't seem to be able to join the fight. And one of the reasons you like Kalista in this meta is her ability to tank bust, to get rid of these big meaty targets in the front line.
Yeah, at least early on. Later on, it's going to be a little more difficult, and you can see that Hyanan did itemize with the Executioner's Calling. He's had it about 5 or so minutes to try and deny Exile the ability to regenerate up. Same can be said for Xerxes. Cho'Gath does get a decent amount back. Now,
he's got a Warmog now as well. That's going to give you a little bit more healing.
That was what I was about to touch on, is the fact that Xerxes can kind of try and look to set up fights, back away, regenerate up, go back towards a fight. But obviously Warmog's massive amount of extra health for him will be able to stay around in fights longer, especially if he ends up going for that stone plate later on.
ROCCAT have vision around the Baron. There is a Scuttlecrab just expired on the side of Unicorns of Love. They have a few long-range totems, though, so they can spot this being done. They will. However, ROCCAT are going to stay on it.
And it's Kalista, right? You know you've got the Ren damage. Wadid now with
Equalizer. Hylissang jumps in, the knockup from Wadid, but Exile's on Betsy in the backline. Unleashed Power will come out. Hylissang's low, off towards the front. Pridestalker will get the kill. Exile's going to fall as well. 2 for 1 in favor of ROCCAT. They're looking for more. Chachi and Xerxes still very healthy, as is Samux. And ROCCAT all with half HP. They have stopped the Baron, and ROCCAT will accept their 2 kills.
And if ever there was a reason to show Unicorns Vlad picks and these later game picks, that fight demonstrates it perfectly. Exile soaked up the time of at least 3 members of ROCCAT for the duration of that fight, and it meant that ROCCAT couldn't take a fight on 2 fronts. Too dangerous for them to fully commit into the tail end of the fight because Chachi was full health. And it means that Unicorns of Love delay a game that was starting to slip away for them with the last two fights.
But we said in Picks and Bans, the longer it takes, the better it is for Unicorns.
Look, Exile runs right up to Betsy in this fight, pushes him back away, turns his attention then towards Wadid and Hyanan. And yes, he ends up dying, but look at how low those three members have been. Then Chachi's health is pretty much 100%. Samek's the same. Xerxes, a very healthy, tanky target, means that from that point on, Unicorns have control of that team fight, and ROCCAT are getting stalled out.
Does it all just become a Baron dance now for these two teams? Because ROCCAT don't seem to be able to break the base of Unicorns without a few kills, and Unicorns seem willing to take these fights around Baron.
As long as it doesn't get too close to being rendered down, Unicorns are fine for ROCCAT to start the Baron, but this is getting really hectic.
Very close. It's going to get taken away by ROCCAT, and Unicorns are too slow to react.
Yeah, this time Xerxes couldn't get close enough. Now, the ideal thing is if Xerxes is there before it's down below 4,000 or 3,000 health, you can take that fight, and ROCCAT have taken so much free damage, but at that point, ROCCAT just commit to it fully, no chance of a steal coming through, and the Unicorns of Love now are going to have to win a couple of fights once again if they want to be able to extend this game.
And I think the last few minutes really exemplify one of Unicorn's main weaknesses. It's their inconsistency. Like, they'll take a great fight around the Baron, they'll stop it happening, and then they just won't think about the fact that they need to regain the vision control and make sure ROCCAT can't rush it down as they start their backs. It's something we've seen from Unicorns at Rift Rivals over the last split. It's just not being able to make the same steps of decisions time and time again.
And now we need to see ROCCAT not make the same mistake everybody makes against the Unicorns.
Oh.
They're getting caught out on the bottom side. It's a different lane, I guess.
Hero's entrance comes out, but he's knocked up. The Rupture stops him. And now ROCCAT need to try and play on the other side of the map. Faxi's going to delay them for as long as he can, but I don't think he's getting out of this one. Faxi, you may be tanky, but Unicorns will take the kill.
Faxi is just Staxi right now for Xerxes as they take him out on the bottom lane, and they're trying to hold the rest of the map, but it's not enough because ROCCAT taking down the mid inhibitor, at least the tower for now, and going to back away. So Faxi did a good enough job, but Unicorns still getting a catch. Now, it's not in the bottom lane. We need ROCCAT to now avoid that lane because they can pick off bot tower, maybe look towards the top tower as well. They've still got 2 minutes of this Baron, but they are doing a decent job of at least punishing the Unicorns for all-inning on Faxi.
It's a slow snowball, but it's a snowball nonetheless. And at the moment, Unicorns have to work out how they're going to dodge this snowball because ROCCAT do look like they're in the superior position. In fact, you can categorically say they are in the superior position with 8,000 gold lead, with 6 towers to 2, with double oceans to just the cloud. Unicorns of Love need to find one of their magical team fights in the mid lane once again.
And that just means ROCCAT need to avoid there. Like, just
don't go mid.
Don't go mid. You don't need to because the inhibitor tower is already down. And look, what Pride Stalker can do well now is go between lanes because he can find squishy targets with bot lane.
Hylissang can engage Hyanan, puts the fake call back. It's going to be a 4v3. The hook comes in. Here's Pride Stalker jumping the wall. Xerxes, that front line, going very low. The hero's entrance, but the Hemo play from Exile. A team fight God, perhaps, as he tries to take down Hyanan. Cannot do it. ROCCAT turn around. Samex with the Feather Storm trying to flash his way away. Faxi cannot chase.
And this has been a key purchase on that Mortal Reminder early on from Hyanan. They have had so much more damage than Exile has been able to sustain himself through. But Betsy in the middle lane.
Hylissang goes for the engage.
Pride Stalker's here though.
Gonna flash away. Void Assault does come in from Pride Stalker, uses that ultimate to try and get closer. Cannot get the Duskblade stacks off Stress. This is all we want to see. Another hook. It's gonna land onto Hylissang, and Unicorns of Love bottom lane has just looked winged this game. Birds of a Feather may flock together, but they have been struggling into Hyanan and Wadid. This will be the inhibitor for ROCCAT if they can stay for a couple of moments longer. They're looking for the bottom lane tower as well. Hyanan and Faxi down there. Pride Stalker and Betsy off towards mid. That's mid lane inhib down. Unicorns of Love trying to keep their turrets alive.
Yeah, just gotta be careful the Birds of a Feather don't hit the taxi windscreen right now because Faxi wants to drive this 1,000,000 miles an hour through the Unicorn's base. Now, Baron has expired, which means ROCCAT are likely to take their foot off the accelerator. A fight like this works out very well for them because, look, despite Betsy not being able to get to this fight, neither can Chachi right now because Chachi has TP, but the team don't call for it, and then Betsy gets too close so that he'll be able to stun him. But look, Xerxes loses so much damage, he's not expecting to take so much from the Blade of the Ruin King, from the Rend. Exile cannot sustain through all of that damage, and then the rest of the Unicorns of Love don't have enough damage to take down Faxi, Pridestalker, and the rest of the bot lane for ROCCAT.
And having that Mortal Reminder helps so much in that, because if you don't have that, the Hemoplague gives you a massive burst of healing rather than the 40% reduced amount that you take. Was it 50% reduced amount? The reduced amount that you take. I'm sure you'll find that out for me.
The reduced amount.
Betsy's going to secure his blue. Elder Drake up next as well. And a good Baron power play for ROCCAT here. 3,500 gold, you would take that. You would take that on top of your snowball, a golden snowball for you, that you are trying to build to crash down the Unicorn's base.
Yeah, and at this point, ROCCAT, they seem to be doing their due diligence. Because you see Wadid not just walking up into that bush, not just pushing through. They're at least trying to set up vision control around this top side to continue the march forward. You just always have that looming sense that the Unicorns have something planned, at least like with the late game team fights, because it's getting to a dangerous territory. Stoneplate completed.
Yeah, Stoneplate completed, Warmog's completed.
Void Star, needlessly large rod on Exile. So if ROCCAT don't play these fights carefully, there's only so much damage that this Kalista, the Syndra are going to be able to output against this massive tank. Now, there is only one tank, realistically, on the Unicorns of Love, so at least if they don't kind of all in that. Look at how huge Xerxes is.
Must be sitting on about 5,000 HP at the moment. Hook's going to land onto him. Garden puts a couple of spears in, just like that's not going to be enough for the time being, but Wadid wants to go forward. Here's the hero's entrance. They're looking for Exile as well, who will Sanguine Pool away. Wadid flashes in, the hook lands on Hillisang, and this is the fight that ROCCAT wanted. They get to holy that feast onto Orchiana, but somehow he survives. ROCCAT get 3 kills. Betsy's looking for another. Can Chachi get his way away? He will use the flash.
So Xerxes tries to turn the second half of the fight with that massive feast damage, but ROCCAT have already done the damage to Exile, to Hillisang, and then to Xerxes. Now they crush through the second inhibitor, and ROCCAT are looking for a win here against the Unicorns of Love in game number 1.
ROCCAT on the cusp of what would be a glorious victory for them. Perhaps they'll take the series as well. Chachi jumped on by Pridestalker, not enough burst from him yet, but Yanin has the follow-up damage. The taunt's gonna hit onto Samix as well, but they don't care about Xayah. They care about the Nexus towers. They're gonna take the first one, they're gonna take the second one, and they're gonna look for the Nexus. The charm does connect from Hillisang, but he has been roasted up. We'll have poultry tonight, they say, and we'll take your Nexus. 1-0, ROCCAT.
And ROCCAT answer back. We asked the question, could they snowball with Syndra this week? And they have answered in game number 1 that yes, they can. This was a lot better with an early game focus out of ROCCAT than against Mysterious Monkeys, nonetheless. The opposite side of the group structure. And against the Unicorns, they take the fights, they continue fighting, punish Exile's Vladimir pick. And they close the game and don't look half bad doing it.
Punish Exile's Vladimir pick is something we've heard a lot of times this split stress. Exile has definitely been struggling. Unicorns of Love have been struggling with those mid lane picks as well, and it feels like they just tried to adapt to a new meta, tried to bring in that Cho'Gath, but didn't really understand how to utilize it to its best effectiveness.
And I think we just got a glimpse of Pridestalker from the promotion tournament once again. 7, 3, and 6 on this game with the Duskblade on Kha'Zix. Had a lot more impact than the Cho did, which is a little bit sad. I wanted to talk more about Cho'Gath. Hopefully we'll see him again, maybe in a successful standpoint. But certainly you can see a couple of the ripple effects of 7-14 throughout this game. But generally everything's still maintaining the meta that we were expecting when you look at tank jungle, when you look at exactly the lane setups.
Well, ROCCAT struck first against the Unicorns of Love. Let's get some thoughts from our analysts on their win.
Thank you very much, guys. Not getting too excited for ROCCAT, but as said, this is around the time that in the spring split, they turned everything around. But this is just one game, so let's break down a couple of aspects of this game. Obviously, also with 7.14 in mind. But first, I want to talk about ROCCAT and what we expected from them. Early game advantage, and they did it again. They were up 3,800 gold by 20 minutes, but we've seen them throw leads like that. How, in the first place, did they get that lead in this game?
Yeah, they have a good skirmishing comp, and I think it just comes a lot from the mid lane, where where Exile did not really perform on the Vladimir early on. We saw some mistakes in the 1-versus-1 matchup against Betsy, who was running the Ignite and the Syndra versus Vladimir matchup, which I was not completely convinced about. I think the Ghost is really good in that matchup, but he showed that he could pull it off.
Definitely so. We always rag on Exile, but I do think this is one of the cases where you can clearly say that that move going on their tower is completely his fault, so to say.
It was a misplay.
It was a misplay, but how did that then net 3,800 gold in the pocket of ROCCAT as a whole? Where were the other moves of the team?
Because once you lose pressure mids, that gives you freedom to do whatever you want, because Syndra now always has the pushing ability. Kha'Zix can now move into the enemy jungle, start warding up. That gives you ability for your bottom laner to start roaming around the map. That's why we saw Wadid coming to the mid lane and fighting a lot of these fights. And because of that single kill, things just resulted in ROCCAT having that early pressure advantage, and they used it extremely effectively.
ROCCAT had the room to work with that early pressure advantage, and I do want to look at the two things we've seen there. First up, Cho'Gath, 7.14. You called it. He would be in the game. Xerxes picked it. Not too much of an influence early on, but overall, what did he bring to the game?
So this game, he didn't bring a huge amount. But typically, when you look at Cho'Gath, what you're expecting is just this massive utility bot who should just follow up on a lot of the engages. Something Henning and I talked a lot about was every time that Rakan goes in, Cho'Gath follow-up, super strong. He's going to provide so much CC.
With what?
With the
CC
silence on his W, with the knock-up on his Q. Like, it is super easy to just lock down someone like a Kalista or a Syndra to just insta-kill those individuals. The problem is, if you are not the one starting off the fight, Cho'Gath can be very easily ignored. He is just this massive CC bot that doesn't really do much when he can't really land any of his significant skill shots. And to add to the fact that he didn't build a Righteous Glory, it was super difficult for him to actually threaten any kind of carries. So he just spent a lot of the fight just bimbling around and just trying to do whatever he can, cleaning up the scraps.
Yeah, I think you talk about him being a CC bot, and I think what a lot of people underestimate is the silence. So many silences have been removed from the games. People think about the Rupture, but actually a silence is such a good ability, especially versus these champions where you can wait out the cooldown and then go for the silence and just completely disable them. So Cho'Gath definitely have the utility.
But he couldn't in this game.
Yeah, in the right combo, he'll get a knock-up, 2 slows, and a silence, but he couldn't get any of that in this game because they were far behind, and that makes us also look at the other side, Kha'Zix with Duskblade, and this item just synergizes very, very well with Kha'Zix, or the other way around. Why is it such a good match?
Okay, so the passive of the Duskblade works with invisibility. When you go out of enemy vision, you get extra damage on your next auto attack. So that's basically the big explanation with the Kha'Zix ultimate, which obviously makes you go invisible, so you get the proc on the Duskblade multiple times per team fight. Also, there's a vision component of the Duskblade, which allows you to see enemy wards, which is actually very powerful for 8 seconds, so you can clear several wards when going through the river. And it also means that you can save your sweeper. So you can go through the river and you don't have to sweep the bushes until your Duskblade has already begun on cooldown with the vision thing.
And they utilized it so effectively, right? We talked about how they had the mid lane pressure. You rush the Duskblade, you grab your support, go into enemy jungle, boom. They now lose vision. You have a huge amount of damage. It's extremely easy to collapse onto anyone. And the kit gives him everything. Cooldown reduction, early damage spike, everything that a Kha'Zix could want. Meant that Prize Stalker was able to have a very successful game, which is very nice to see from him.
That Freudian slip, we don't know, but we do want to take a look at a couple of team fights as well, because ROCCAT we associated with pressure in the early game and building up a gold lead, not being able to snowball. The Unicorns of Love, slower early game, but they pulled a trigger between 20 and 25 minutes. So was this a good decision to go in, yes or no?
I think this is a good fight, time for UL to fight. They have the Rumble level 14 with the Sonias. This is a good power spike for him. You want to set up the 5 versus 5. You have the Rakan engage with a Cho'Gath Rumble Vladimir follow-up. So I think going for the team fight was not a bad decision for the Unicorns of Love, but the execution in the end is not enough, and you're behind in gold as well.
The biggest thing for me, I felt, was that Galio pick, because every time the Rakan went in, that's naturally where the Cho'Gath would try to follow up, but the Galio ulti would just immediately force UL to disengage. Then all of ROCCAT reposition themselves. There's no engage tools left. There's a Rumble ultimate they just have to dance around, and there's a Vladimir running at their face, but the rest of UOL gets zoned off by the Galio, the Vladimir's left on his lonesome in the backline, and then you have this extremely mobile Kalista being peeled for by a Thresh. Like, everything just went in favor of ROCCAT, and I just think that they played those fights superbly.
Yeah, it almost seems like the Unicorns of Love with their Camille and Narbands kind of forgot about the Galio when it came out as the last pick for ROCCAT. We don't know about that. In any case, ROCCAT we're watching them like a hawk. What are they going to do? And sometimes the best move versus the Unicorns of Love is doing nothing at all until it's the exact right time. Let's take a look at the final fight, because it was up to ROCCAT to bring it home. They already had a Baron, and they just played this out magnificently.
And you'd think here, oh no, Wadid, he's going to face check, but he's fully aware of where Unicorns of Love is, and he is not afraid to go for this kind of engage because he knows the lead that they have, and Faxi is extremely tanky. The positioning of Hyanan and Betsy is always superb. They're always in a position where they're not likely to fall. You see the power of the Stone Plate plus the ultimate damage from the Cho'Gath, but it's just not quite enough to kill Hyanan, and ROCCAT come out with a fantastic team fight to close out the game. And typically, you wouldn't expect that from the Unicorns of Love, a team that gets so much praise for their team fights, and then they get outplayed in team fights by a struggling ROCCAT.
A struggling ROCCAT who are up several thousand gold at this point, and this is a very hopeful sign to me because they get the early games, the early game lead, which they have showed they can do in the past. They can do it consistently, and they snowball out a game versus a strong team fighting game. So this should almost spell us out that ROCCAT, the resurgence is there.
It's just the ROCCAT Kingslayers. They took down Fnatic, who were leader in the Group A. Now they're looking to do the same in Group B, and I think that they will hold on to that title for as long as they can.
Can they slaughter the Unicorns? We will see. ROCCAT, they are looking to pull off an upset against UOL. Meet us back here after the break for the second fight.